Hey guys, my name is Alex. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about hip hop. Hip hop and the history of it. Hip hop is not merely a genre of music, it is a cultural force, a collective voice, a social movement, a form of resistance, and a global language. It has shaped fashion, politics, art, technology, and identity, and the very sound of modern music. But hip hop did not begin in record labels, corporate offices, or high tech studios. It began in neighborhoods abandoned by policymakers and forgotten by the rest of the city. It began with young people who decided that, even if they had nothing else, they would create something of their own. To understand hip hop today, its power, its influence, its controversy, and its global presence, we have to go back to where it all started. A burned out borough of New York City, the South Bronx, 1973. This is the full story, the rise, the evolution, and the transformation of hip hop from a local movement into a worldwide phenomenon. Before hip hop existed, the South Bronx was struggling through one of the harshest urban crisis in American history. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a combination of political, economic, and social forces created a landscape of hardship. Redlining prevented investment in black and Latino neighborhoods. White flight hollowed out communities as middle class families moved to the suburbs. Manufacturing jobs disappeared, leaving high unemployment. The Cross Bronx Expressway, designed by Robert Moses, displaced thousands to destroyed stable working class districts, and landlords facing falling property values abandoned buildings or set them on fire for insurance money. Entire blocks looked like war zones. But out of this destruction came a vibrant creativity, a culture built from the ground up. Young people who had no access to instruments, art classes, or dance academies built their own artistic world. Turntables instead of bands, cardboard in place of dance floors, alley walls as canvases, block parties instead of clubs. Hip hop was not an accident, it was a response. It was survival through expression. If hip hop has an official birthday, most historians agree it is August 11th, 1973, at a back to school party in the recreation room of 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. The DJ was Clive DJ Cool Herc Campbell, a Jamaican immigrant voice whose cultural background played a major role in shaping hip hop. Growing up in Jamaica, Herc witnessed sound system cultural, giant portable speaker setups, traveling DJs hosting street parties, and MCs toasting over instrumental tracks. When he moved to the Bronx, he brought that tradition with him. Herc noticed something crucial. Dancers reacted most intensely during the break section of a song, when the drums were isolated, so he developed a technique called the merry-go-round, using two copies of the same record to extend the break indefinitely. The simple innovation changed everything. It gave birth to the B-boys and B-girls, aka breakdancers, the first hip-hop rhythms, a new kind of DJ performance, and a community built around dance, skill, and creativity. Herc didn't just mix records. He recreated the energy of Jamaican block parties on the Bronx streets. Hip-hop was born. Hip-hop has four elements. As the culture expanded, it developed into four major pillars, four interconnected expressions of the same struggle and creativity. First one was DJing, otherwise known as turntablism. The earliest artistic foundation. Key innovators include Kool Herc, the pioneer of the breakbeat; Grandmaster Flash, introducing precision cueing, backspin, and the crossfader; and Grand Wizard Theodore invented scratching. The DJ controlled the party. The DJ controlled the sound. And in the early years, the DJ was far more important than the MC. MCing, aka rapping. Originally, MCs just hyped the crowd, introduced the DJ, and kept the energy alive. But as time passed, MCs began rhyming in rhythm, telling stories, commenting on life, competing for lyrical dominance. Rapping evolved from crowd motivation to a full-fledged form of poetic expression. And then there's breakdancing, b-boying, and b-girling, also known as that. A competitive acrobatic dance culture defined by freezes, footwork, spins, and power moves. It was a peaceful way to settle disputes without violence. Battles took place on cardboard or linoleum sheets, with crowds cheering as dancers represented their crews. Fourth pillar is graffiti, not vandalism but visual identity. Writers like Taki and 183, Phase 2, and Lee Quinones transformed the city into a sprawling open-air gallery. Graffiti was a bold claim of existence. I'm here. I matter. Together, these elements form the cultural foundation of hip-hop. In the late 1970s, hip-hop began moving from block parties to larger stages, like in clubs like the Roxy and Disco Fever, the T-Connection. They all became hotspots for performances. Crews traveled from borough to battle and showcase their skills. Hip-hop became a movement, but it wasn't yet a commercial industry. The first rap record, known as The Rapper's Delight in 1979 by the Sugar Hill Gang, was the first rap song to achieve national success. Although controversial for its origins, it introduced millions of people to the sound of rap. The first classic was The Message from 1982, by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, a realistic, unfiltered description of an inner-city struggle. Rap was no longer just party music. It became a tool for storytelling, protest, and social reflection. And then we get into the golden age of hip hop between the 80s and mid 80s, early 90s. The golden age is defined by creativity, innovation, and diversity. There produced some of the greatest minds in hip hop history. Innovations included complex rhyme patterns, dense metaphors, funk and jazz sampling, social consciousness, Afrocentric pride, political commentary, and creative experimentation. The major figures of that era were Run DMC. He merged hip hop with rock and broke racial boundaries on MTV. Public Enemy, known as politically radical and sonically dense. Rakim. He elevated lyricism with internal rhymes. KRS-One, an intellectual, philosophical MC. De La Soul and A Tribe Called Quest. They were jazzy, introspective, and alternative. Big Daddy Kane, Slick Rick, and LL Cool J. They were charismatic, they had flow, and they were masters of the narrative. Then there's the Beastie Boys. They were unexpected innovators who expanded hip hop's reach. This was the era when rap became respected as an art form. Then we got the West Coast rise in gangster rap, which is the late 80s to mid 90s. While New York was mastering lyricism, the West Coast was shaping the cultural conversation. You got NWA with Straight Outta Compton in 1988. Their debut album forced the nation to confront police brutality, poverty, systematic racism, and gang culture, as well as government neglect. Songs like F the Police made political leaders furious and placed hip hop at the center of national debate. The G-Funk Revolution from 1990 to 1992 onward. Dr. Dre's The Chronic redefined hip hop with slow, heavy bass lines, smooth synthesizers, funk samples, melodic hooks, and laid back but sharp flows. This era introduced Snoop Dogg and gave West Coast hip hop international influence. Then there was the tension in the East to West Coast. The mid-1990s saw growing tensions between between East Coast and West Coast labels, fueled by competition, misunderstandings, and media sensationalism. Leading figures in this were Tupac Shakur from the West Coast, representing Death Row Records. She was a poet, an actor, an activist, and a deeply emotional lyricist. And then the notorious B.I.G., East Coast, from Bad Boy Records, unmatched narrative storyteller and technical genius. Their deaths in 1996 and 97 marked a painful turning point in hip-hop history. The industry reflected, matured, and began moving in new directions. The 2000s brought innovation, globalization, and commercial dominance. By the early 2000s, hip-hop was no longer emerging, it was the mainstream. You got Jay-Z, with a business mogul and a lyrical craftsman. Kanye West brought soul slapping, orchestral production, and genre blending. You have Outkast with the futuristic, experimental, musically daring tracks. Eminem, technical precision, emotional depth, and international influence. You got Missy Elliott, a visual innovator and a boundary-breaking creative mind. Lil Wayne was a mixtape legend, a punchline king, and had prolific output. This era expanded hip-hop into fashion, film, branding, and global markets. Then you got the 2010s, the streaming era, and sound evolution. The 2010s introduced a digital revolution. Streaming platforms allowed artists to gain fame without record labels. Social media changed promotion. YouTube and SoundCloud created new pathways. The movements that started by this was trap music, which was an Atlanta's signature sound. Emo rap, which brought out emotional vulnerability in hip hop. Melodic rap, like Drake and Post Malone, just to name a few. Experimental rap brought Kendrick Lamar, Tyler the Creator, Childish Gambino. And then there was a lyricism revival with J. Cole, Logic, and Joey Badass. Hip-hop became a multi-dimensional, no single sound defined the culture. Today, hip-hop is a global language. It is international. Countries across the world have embraced and transformed it, from the UK's grime and drill scenes, French and Belgian rap, Afrofusion and African hip-hop, Korean hip-hop, Latin trap and reggaeton, indigenous and regional rap movements. Hip-hop is no longer one culture. It is a network of cultures connected by rhythm, experience, and expression. Why does hip-hop matter? It matters because it tells stories that need to be heard. It shines a light on realities often ignored by society. It empowers marginalized communities. It inspires innovation across art, fashion, politics, and technology. And it proves that creativity can come from anywhere, even from places that the world has forgotten. Hip hop is a mirror of society and a megaphone for the people. It is not simply history. It is a story of struggle, resilience, evolution, and identity. It is the story of all of us. Thank you for joining me on this for this deep exploration of hip hop's origins, its evolution, its global legacy. If you want more videos like this, subscribe and stay tuned. This has been the story of us.